campaign contributions. That is to say, donations of money, loans, or in-kind gifts provided to political candidates, parties, or committees to influence elections. So I've got your definitions here. For this video, we're looking at the sources piece of this puzzle. What are the sources of money and donations that our two Senate candidates have gotten so far? So I started with this small table, which I clearly made in Microsoft Word. So looking at Sherrod Brown versus Jon Husted, have they gotten or do they get money from their political party funds? Yes and yes. Do they both get money from individual donors giving small amounts of money, which means less than $200? Yes and yes. Do they get money from individual donors giving big money amounts? So that's over $200. Yes and yes. Do they get money from PACs or super PACs? Yes and yes. Okay, end of video. No, I'm kidding. At this point, they pretty much look the same, these two guys. And so then I thought, okay, well, let's dig in a little bit more to some of these things and get into some more annoying detail. So let's start with individual donors giving small money. This would be people like you and me, and small contributions are considered, in this case, we'll make it less than $100. So with Sherrod Brown, 97% of his individual donors are small donors like you and me, giving less than $100. And so conversely, this means 3% of the individual donors for Sherrod Brown are large donors that give more than $200. So right off the top, this says to me he's got a lot of supporters that are like you and me. Okay, with Jon Husted, 27% of his individual donors are small donors like you and me, giving less than $100. Conversely, doing the math, 73% are large donors giving more than $200. Okay, so that's a difference between these two guys. So now I've updated our cute little chart. And so money from individual donors giving small money, so 97% of Sherrod Brown's individual donors give small money. And then for Jon Husted, 27% of his individual donors give small money. So now I have on screen another definition for us because we're about to jump into PACs. So a PAC or a super PAC is a political action committee. This is a gigantic fundraising behemoth, and it really did change American politics. So unlike a candidate's official campaign, which has strict limits on how much an individual can give, so currently an individual donor can only give $3,500 per election. A super PAC can raise unlimited amounts of money. So the downside for a PAC is they are legally prohibited from coordinating with candidates. So they have to be an entirely independent entity. They can't sit down with a candidate and tell them what to do. But the power of this is that there's no limits. So a single billionaire or a millionaire or a corporation can write a $10 million check, a $1 billion check, a $100,000 check, whatever, to a super PAC, and they could only give $3,500 to a candidate directly, but through a super PAC, there's no limits on what they can give. Okay, so let's look at the PAC or super PAC money that is coming to Sherrod Brown and Jon Husted. And I will admit, I learned a lot here. I did not know a lot about super PACs. Take a moment to look at this. So this is Jon Husted's super PAC money. So he gets super PAC money from this super PAC that's called the Senate Leadership Fund. And so the Senate Leadership Fund, super PAC, has given Jon Husted basically $80 million. And how does, who is putting money into this super PAC, right? Where is that coming from? Where is that $80 million coming from? Three main pots, three main pools. So the first on the left there are billionaire megadonors. And so I have four listed out. So we have Miriam Adelson, who has given $30 million. We have Elon Musk, who's given $10 million. Paul Elliott Singer, who's given $14.5 million. And then we have Timothy Mellon down at the bottom, and I don't have a number for how much he has given at this time. Okay, so that's where actually most of this money is coming from. But there's also two other pools of money that this has come from, right? The first one is dark money groups, which sounds scary. So about a quarter of the Senate Leadership Fund PAC money comes from One Nation. One Nation is like a nonprofit thingy that isn't required to disclose its donors. So a quarter of this money comes from unknown donors. I don't know. That's what they mean by dark money. And then if you go to the way right, specific industries have given millions of dollars to this Senate Leadership Fund. And so these are fossil fuel companies, so oil and gas companies primarily, tobacco companies, so companies like Altria, which is Philip Morris, and RAI Services, and then also crypto. So this is sort of newer for 2026. Crypto-backed groups and founders like the Winklevoss twins have also donated a lot of money to this super PAC. Okay, so the graphic is different here, but the layout is actually a lot the same. So this is Sherrod Brown's super PAC money, and the main super PAC that is giving money to him is the Senate Majority PAC. And that has given about $40 million on Brown's behalf. So for Jon Husted, the super PAC was giving him about $80 million. For Sherrod Brown, this super PAC is giving him about $40 million, so half the amount. And so same three pools of money are coming into this super PAC. The first is your billionaire mega donors. So we have Reid Hoffman on the lower left there, LinkedIn co-founder. We have Stephen Mandel, hedge fund manager. I don't have amounts of money for them, so I'll update this video if I can never figure that out. And then in the middle is the dark money again. And this is the same concept as with Jon Husted. In this case, the dark money groups are two groups called Majority Forward and the 1630 Fund. And so just as with Jon Husted, these are nonprofits, so they don't have to disclose where their money comes from. So can't say much about that. And then on the right, where Jon Husted had those different industries that were giving him a lot of money, Sherrod Brown has these industrial unions giving him a lot of money. So through this super PAC. So we have the United Steelworkers, the United Auto Workers. We have building and trade unions, so iron workers, bricklayers, electrical workers. We also have service and public sector unions. So Service Employees International Union, United Food and Commercial Workers, and then also not as part of unions, but environmental groups and climate advocacy groups have put money into this super PAC for Sherrod Brown. Okay, so if we come back to our table and make it a little bit more complicated, I have listed out here then so that you can see, do each of these guys get money from super PACs? Yes. And then I've listed out for both of them the billionaires that have put in money and then the different unions or companies that have put in money towards them. Okay, so that is that table, and I'll show this table to you again. So that sort of answers most of my campaign contribution questions. But I have another chart that I made in Microsoft Excel and then put it through AI to try to make it look prettier, and I'm not sure it looks any prettier, but here it is. And so this is looking at the amount of, as of June 2026, the amount of money that both of our guys' campaigns have right now, and kind of like a huge overview look at where that money comes from. And so Jon Husted has over $80 million so far, and then Sherrod Brown has over $60 million. And you can see with Jon Husted, 80 million comes from that super PAC, and then about 10 million comes from direct campaign. So that's going to be donors, people like you, people like me, and then also donors who drop a lot of money. But again, the maximum they can give is $3,500. And then for Sherrod Brown, $26 million comes from direct campaign. So that's donors like you and me, but then also people who give up to $3,500, individual donors. And then the super PAC that we talked about, 40 million. And so I thought the difference in individual donor money versus PAC money in both of these campaigns, that was interesting to me. So I thought maybe it's interesting to you, so I would share. Okay, so when you see this chart, something else that is notable, you can see that the total dollar amount, the millions and millions, needed to win this race in 2026 is so very, very high that neither side could win without dark money and super PACs. And this is upsetting to me, right? I mean, certainly Sherrod Brown has more money coming from individual donors like you and me, which I think is notable. But both candidates have most of their money coming from super PACs and dark money, which I guess is because they have to if they want to win. Also to know, I looked into this, more of Sherrod Brown's campaign contributions come from inside Ohio, and more of Jon Husted's campaign contributions come from outside of Ohio. And so, I don't know, that was interesting to me too. Now, if all of this is bothering you a bit because you're feeling like your own Ohio Senate election is being like puppeteered by big bazillion-dollar companies and bazillionaires, then you might be interested in looking up and thinking about campaign finance reform. That's the fancy phrase for changing how we handle money in elections. So if you're a little unsettled, campaign finance reform might be right up your alley, and I do, of course, have links in the video description to that. So here's our final table then, made larger with extra information, and so you can see then some differences between our candidates and where they're getting money for their campaign this year. Okay, and so in the video description, I have lots of links to various pieces of this puzzle. I also have links to Ohio voter registration information, voting date information, early voting information. I have Sherrod Brown and Jon Husted's websites listed, and other things that are related to this that might be interesting to you.